Next question. The church produced and influenced culture in extraordinary ways. Historically, it's been the case, but not so much lately. So what has changed in your mind?
It seems that the saints have gone undercover. I don't doubt that they're there, but we're just not seeing them. I just think that that's the difference. Where are the saints?
So in your mind, they're there, but they're invisible to the general culture right now.
I have Christian hope, so I'm hoping they're there. But I think they need to make their presence known. And because the fear is they're not there. Right. And then what? Like, the church is supposed to be producing saints. That's our job. Mm-hmm. That the gospel should provoke in us a level of such commitment and love for the Lord that we will aspire to lives that are like unto him, so that in meeting us, people will meet Christ. Are we seeing that? Because it's embodied. It's not an abstraction. And it's not something that you can say, well, somebody else over there is doing it. Yeah. Somebody else in that country is doing it or something. No, it should be evident to us.
Lack of courage? Is that the fundamental stumbling block?
I think everyone has to examine their own conscience. I mean, I don't think that there's one reason for it, but like maybe it's a question we just don't know anymore what the church is for. Mm. We don't accept that the church is something that's supposed to change us. It's supposed to reorient our disposition towards life itself, right? Because the church and the body is the body of Christ, and Christ's body is supposed to be changing us. It's like that's supposed to be the mystery, the great mystery of the Blessed Sacrament. That as we take that into ourselves, we become like Him.
And what I'm thinking as you say this is saints are public. Sainthood is not. It's an interior spirituality. Yeah. It overflows.
Right. It isn't just here I am. Content with my relationship with Jesus in the privacy of my home, and you know, like, so it's like a freedom of worship model that, well, I go to church sometimes and then that's about it, and then I have there's this other reality out there and I just interact with it. Saints would never recognize that distinction as being at all valid. They'd be like, what? Yeah, right. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah. But I think maybe it could be that too many of us think it does make sense.
And what about the claim, before I move on to the next question, that sainthood is for other people? Not me. I'm too much of a sinner to be a saint. But other people, I certainly support them being saints.
Well, I just see that as a refusal of Christ. And again, I mean, I have to examine my own conscience in relation to that. I think everybody does. It's like, so why do you think that in the providence of God, you were baptized? It didn't have to happen. Yeah. Do you think it was a joke? Do you think it was like a mistake? It's like, no. And so if you were kind of called, you were set apart by Christ for the church, that means that He has pretty good kind of hope that you could aspire to be a saint, that you're going to give it a try. And the things, saints are always in some way inhibited by their sinfulness. But it's like, that doesn't hold them back. Right. And in fact, that they use that kind of, the resistance of that as something that kind of moves them forward in mission.
Can Western civilization survive without the church?
No.
Once the church is properly positioned in the political arena?
No, the church has to position itself in any culture. But Western civilization itself, if the church goes away, that culture will be destroyed. It's integral to it. The culture is like growing out of the church. Mm-hmm. And if we've been cutting branches off that tree for many years, and we're getting to the point that you're going to kill the organism itself. And that's a very, very dangerous thing. Now, it might kind of rankle some secularists that I said that, but I think we're seeing it. You can't kind of just disentangle or cut yourself away from the church in Western civilization and have anything that's going to survive.
What in your mind are the most foundational contributions the church makes that to Western civilization that makes it possible?
Right now, the dignity of the human person. Mm-hmm. right now, the relationship of mind, spirit, and matter. Right now, how do you have ethics if you have no transcendental reference point in which to argue for their existence? I mean, there's lots of things that the church has been deliberating over centuries that is given life to this civilization. And we're cutting that thing apart at our own peril.
In your response to the critique, say from a secular perspective, well, we can retrieve a conception of dignity. We'll call it autonomy.
Good luck. How's that working out? It would be the thing. How's that working out?
Not
it's like you haven't come up with anything better. So
I agree with you.
Yeah, I'm just saying. How's that working out for you?
Not well. All right, next question. Is there a vocations crisis in the West? And if so, what do you think are its main contributing factors?
At this point in time, I think there is a vocation crisis that's linked to a crisis in families and in human beings. That there isn't a kind of prevailing sense that there is a meaning and purpose to existence, that one can have a relationship with God for which you can kind of give your life towards. And I also think that the vocation crisis is largely rooted in the fact that people just don't have children anymore in the West. And so it's the manifestation of a demographic reality. Like, of course there's less clergy. There's less people being born.
Yeah.
And that's probably the best variable or correlate to look at.
Well, you know what the Catholic online community will say to you is bad catechesis. The priests aren't doing the job. The bishops aren't doing their job.
Yeah, like somebody's got to pay. It's somebody's fault, but it's never our fault.
Yeah.
It's never something for what I have done and what I have failed to do. It's somebody out there. I'm just not convinced by those arguments. How did we get to this demographic reality?
Right.
How did we get there? Bad catechesis? I suppose you could say that could be a contributing factor. But you can catechize very well, but do people believe it?
Right.
And also it's placing an emphasis on the propositional reality of the faith, almost singularly. Like, we can kind of will you into the church by convincing arguments, or we can will you into a life of sanctity by convincing arguments, or you just have to get these propositions right, and then sanctity will happen to you. It's like you're not quite there yet. You're not quite there yet with the mystery of vocation and the mystery of divine grace. So we all have answers for it, and we're all gonna cling to something, usually because there's a presupposition in mind that we believe should be supported. And it's not like, well, I guess we just shouldn't be concerned about catechesis at all. You know, that's not it at all, or that it's not important or something like that. It's just, we're dealing with deeper realities than that. How do you convince people that, again, like that a life in Jesus Christ in which you give your life to him fully and completely is worth it? Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, people have to see it. They have to see that life being lived out. And the other thing is that you can't just think that if we get all the propositions right and we get all the rubrics right, that suddenly faith breaks out all over. I think that for a lot of people, like, we'd have a more satisfying experience of Catholicism because it would bring what we would perceive to be order from the chaos. Right. But are we growing in charity because of that? Because the true directionality of doctrine and worship, and which is related to propositions and rubrics, things like that, is charity. And it's charity that you see in the life of the saints that makes you have through them, or there's an invitation to know Christ.
So if I say to you, Father Steve, I agree with you, but the problem is we have to start with a more beautiful liturgy, and that's going to inspire belief, which is going to inspire charity, which is going to fix this problem.
I'd say you're a person of hope in saying, okay, and I'd say set about that project, and if that project produces Vincent de Paul or Teresa of Calcutta, you might be onto something.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where you've got to give it a try. Its orientation can't be like, I had the most glorious personal aesthetic experience of the Mass, and I'm so pleased to go there. And that's it. That's it. Like, what is that all it's supposed to generate?
Right.
Because then I think it's kind of like spiritual solipsism is going on there. So it's like if what you're proposing as a solution is something you're going to freely attend to, and you're going to become a manifestation of Christ in the world that is revealed in love, then go for it. Now, usually when people have, and we're talking about extremists in the church, usually have like, this is the plan. They want to impose it. And that's, to me, is a red flag that there's something off.
Mm-hmm.
When it's say, like, in order to do this, we have to begin imposing it on everybody. It's not a free offer of grace anymore.
Yeah.
And is love something that's imposed?
No.
No. So that's my answer to the question.
Next question. Do you believe in the devil and the influence of malign spirits in human affairs?
The devil exists not because I believe in the devil, because if I say I believe in the devil, it's almost like I'm making an act of faith in him. It's like the devil exists and malign spirits exist. So that's my preliminary answer. And you look puzzled right
Are they
now.
active in human affairs?
Sure. How could you look at human affairs and say that they're not? You're worried about the devil? Worry about that devil that you're growing inside of yourself, that you're feeding. And that's where kind of the spiritual practices of the church are meant to be at play.
Mm-hmm.
They're not just out there as like performative things. They're meant to deal with the inclinations within ourselves that are hellish and demonic. And how do we see that in the world? Cruelty. That's how we see it. That we are terribly cruel towards one another. And at the root of that, I would say, it's the hell and the devil that are at work in us and that we're growing all the time. Saying that the impact is going to be in you. The impact of those spirits in the culture is going to be in you. That's the necessity of the Christian presence in the culture, and of an authentic Christianity that is able to flourish in some form, because that's what's showing us the truth of who we are. We're not going to arrive at that ourselves.